Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. I am super happy that you have downloaded today's show, and I hope that if it inspires you, you'll share it. I've recently really been made clear that the best way for me to grow this show is to really ask you and other like-minded people to get involved in this conversation, because we really want to create a powerful force of like-minded, high-resonating individuals to make a big difference. And today's topic is ending the global fear trap. And I've got on Katie Hendricks, wife of and partner of Gay Hendricks from last week's show. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, a little bit about me. I just want to make sure everyone understands that my show is an extension of my mission in the world. And I bring on guests not necessarily to feature them in a, oh, please teach us all because you know so much more than we do kind of way. It's really to have a conversation about certain beliefs or teachings or healings that I and some of you may have, and to see where they resonate and to see where we can help each other and affect the world. So often it's not just an interview-based show. And it used to be every Thursday I had a solo show, and I would do some kind of teaching on the solo show. That has stopped because those solo shows now reside in the Inner Circle membership. And I also do some interviews, and we do group discussions on books, and Doug and I have done a whole 4-episode process of working on The Big Leap. So welcome to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, again, please share it with those that you trust are able to hear the messages in the things that get talked about on the show. And pretty soon, we're going to be wrapping up in a couple of weeks here, our swag bag contest. If you would like to win one of the many cool products that I get to give away at my live events, because I have extra, go to jjflazanes.com/swag bag. There will be 5 winners. So right now you have a really good shot. And I'd love you to come on over and apply to the swag bag giveaway. I don't know when I'll do it again, but so far so good. I will announce the winners on a Facebook Live in the 30-day manifestation challenge group on May 1st. If you are not in that group, you will get an email requesting your address so we can ship you your prize. And again, it's probably a couple $100 worth of stuff in this box, and you can check out what's in the bag if you go to jjflazanes.com/swag bag. The link will be in the show notes. So today's show, Ending the Global Fear Trap. I loved this conversation with Katie. Kathlyn Hendricks, PhD, has been a successful entrepreneur for 50 years. She is the co-author of 12 books, including Conscious Loving and At the Speed of Life, and has devoted a coaching program focused on somatic approaches to transformation that has trained coaches all over the world. Her current passion is ending the global fear trance and assisting people and organizations to recover resourcefulness and find joy and connection even in the midst of chaos. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you.
I'm interested in this conversation that we're about to have today. You have such a intricate and long-standing body of work, so many books, 12 books, all on consciousness and healing in some way or another. And I know through friends of ours, people that we know together, that you're sort of on this, like the new thing for you, the path is ending the global fear trap. And I think now more than ever, we really need to get into that conversation. So can I first start by asking you a little bit about what brought you to defining that as a mission in today's world?
About 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I was looking around, and in our seminars, our live seminars, and our books and the things that we're engaged in, I would see people coming up against an obstacle, and I would think, what is it that's actually going on here that's keeping people from creating what they want to create in their lives? And what I began to notice is that there was a commonality that people would come up against something and then stop. And what I began to see was that what was running all of that was fear, and that people didn't understand that there are 2 main things that happen when you're in fear. One is that you can't think. When you're in fear, your 3 brains separate from each other: your thinking brain, your feeling brain, and your reptilian brain, your locating brain. they all separate and your reptilian brain takes over. Godzilla takes over the building, and you can't use your problem-solving brain. And so anything that we're trying to create from fear doesn't work because we're not really thinking. And the other thing that I began to notice was that when people are in fear, the thing that happens when you're in your reptilian brain is that other people become the enemy. And we don't realize that. And I began to see that prejudice, treating other people as with contempt, treating other people as inferior, as the other, othering people, which has become so predominant, that's all rooted in fear. And so I thought, what's the highest leverage point we can take to change things? And that is to befriend fear. And there's lots more to say about it, but I'll just pause right there to let you know what began to lead me into this was, rather than trying to do what we call rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, I wanted to change the actual context in which people experience their lives, because it's so much about the fear trance now. There's even a fear index that you can look up, like what's the fear index today, and headlines. Every day there's something that you'll see online, or you'll hear on your favorite station that is about fear. And so I thought the highest leverage we can make is to befriend fear. And so that's what my passion has been for the last several years.
Why don't we start at the beginning and explain the differences between the three brains, and when we're using them, when we're not, on a regular basis in normal circumstances?
Well, yes, if we can remember normal circumstances, we haven't experienced those for about 20 years now, but in normal circumstances, you can think of your brain is like a grapefruit, and the rind of the grapefruit is about the size of your thinking brain, and it's actually the new kid on the block. It was developed much, much later than your limbic brain, your feeling brain, and your reptilian brain. So your problem-solving brain is designed to get the juice from the rest of the grapefruit. If you think about when you cut up a grapefruit and there's all that juicy stuff inside, that is your limbic brain, which gives you the fuel, the actual things to think about that your problem-solving brain can deal with. Your reptilian brain is the oldest part of your brain. It's the brain stem. It would be like the interior of the very core of the grapefruit that kind of holds everything together. It regulates your breathing. It really regulates the autonomic nervous system, so that you can do things like run away from danger without having to think about it. Because people don't understand that your thinking brain, the sensations that circulate in your thinking brain are actually slower than the sensations that come from your body. Your body sensations work 4 to 10 times faster, and that's all wired in so that you don't have to think, well, should I run away from this tiger now or just stand here and freeze? So the fight or flight is wired in to protect us. The problem is that we've been overusing it for so long that it's kind of taken over the map.
Absolutely. I would agree with that 100%, and also understand from the work that I do on the health side between the adrenal system and the fight or flight, that we, in our stressful, everything is life or death belief system about how we handle emails or how we handle appointments or how we drive, or in this day and age, if we're looking for toilet paper. I mean, it's getting to be hilarious and hysterical at the same time, that we are so clicked into this very deep fear that becomes, like you said, autonomic. It's that we're no longer thinking. We're in reaction. We're in survival mode. It's either live or die.
Yeah, that's a great phrase, the reaction. So we can either be in reactive brain or in creative problem-solving brain, but we cannot do both. And so when people are approaching a problem and getting stuck, the first and the most powerful thing that they can do is actually shift the fear, what we call shifting from fear to here. Because when I'm in reaction, when I'm in my fear brain, everything looks like a crisis and everything becomes a crisis. And I do think, JJ, that one of the big issues is that we have overemphasized our thinking brain for several hundred years, and we have undervalued and undeveloped the other aspects of our intelligence, our ability to connect with others and to feel what they're feeling, our ability to join with others and collaborate. And we cannot do that from fear. And so a lot of people come at fear from, well, what are you scared of? If you just figure out what you're scared of, then you can, if you've named it, then that's all you need to do. And that doesn't work. So people think, well, I didn't do anything about that because I was scared. And that's the starting place, not the stopping place. The starting place is to recognize, oh, if things are not in flow, then I'm scared. And I can use my body intelligence to shift that much more quickly than I can ever think about it. One of my favorite quotes from the physicist David Bohm is, "The mind makes up the world," then says, "I didn't do that." So the mind thinks that if I can just figure it out, that's all that needs to happen. And we're neglecting this amazing intelligence that we carry in all of our cells that would allow us to presence ourselves and actually interact more creatively rather than same old of seeing other people as enemies and then trying to control or get rid of, which never works.
I do and teach sort of law of attraction. I'm one of those spiritual, I guess, interpreters, I'll say, and how I might do it differently than other people, other than the fact that I feel like I understand 360 degrees the whole way around, all parts and pieces of it, is using things in science to help explain. I'm very big on
Yes.
using all the scientific principles to explain why this, what seems like a belief system or woo, is actually quite scientific, from the physics of frequency and vibration
Yes.
to the neural pathways that we create in our brains to even give us an awareness of something that's going on and being able to experience something versus creating new neural pathways to open us up to new experiences. So all the
Yeah.
different sciences that are included in what I'm going to call law of attraction and how I teach it sounds like this. And I also use in my background with physical sciences, with endocrine system and hormones and exercise and nutrition and biochemistry, using the body as your messenger, using the
Yes.
body as what tells you before your brain's going to figure something out, what your intuitive cellular response is to something, and how our body is so much smarter in a way than our brain is to
Yeah.
let us know when there's something going on. So with all of that, with all of the understanding of these three brains and going back to the original impulse that you had for you to want to figure out, why do people get into this fear trap and then just revert and don't continue moving forward?
I've been a registered dance movement therapist for 50 years, and I've worked through somatic is just another way of saying working through the body. It just sounds a little fancier, but somatic really means that you're able to have a direct experience of being alive. When we're back behind our beliefs, especially if those beliefs are old and recycling, they actually are a filter between us and the juiciness of actually feeling alive and being able to respond to life. When we're in fear, when we're in the four expressions of fear, which also I don't think people understand very well, when we're either in fight, flee, freeze, or faint, or a combination of those, we don't really get to be here in life and receiving the signals from our body, particularly intuition and any kind of creativity, because when you're in fear, you're in your oldest brain and you're using solutions that were invented, 10, 20,000 years ago, rather than new ones that allow you to respond to what's going on right now. And I think one of the main ways that we have kept that going is by getting so addicted to adrenaline, speed, going faster, faster, faster. So most people aren't even really here. They're out ahead of themselves, they're up above themselves, they're out in the other person. And when we get the direct nutrient of being alive, giving ourselves attention, being able to give others attention, that nutrient of attention, which is as important as food and water to us, we can't receive it when we're in fear because we block that nutrient, seeing other people as enemies. So when I was seeing what is keeping people from actually enjoying being alive and being able to give and receive love and attention with each other and to attract whatever else they want, I began to see it was this fear block, and I got very curious about what does that actually look like, how are people expressing it, and what can we do about it. And that's when I began to develop the fear melters and the other somatic solutions to actually getting here.
Well, we definitely want to know what the fear blockers are, but what I'm getting, and a really interesting picture, a new thought for me in this conversation, is how most of us, or most people, I would believe, want to feel connection, want to feel love, want to feel peace, want to feel something. And we're so disconnected. I tend to stay away from the word mindset. And while I love the brain and all the things the brain can teach us, there's a certain point in which we're so focused on being in our head and being in our minds and being in our intellect that we aren't in our bodies.
I
And
totally agree.
and so what I'm getting right now is this addiction we have to adrenaline is because it's actually something people feel. It's
Yes.
now it's not what we want to feel. People like they feel that rush. They feel that they're going to call it flow, but it's actually forced momentum at a higher rate that they're not in control of. But it's that we have this feeling of fear or feeling of adrenaline and what they think might be flow or huge momentum, which creates a physical sensation of a high in a
Yes.
way, right? But if we look at, if we're not doing that, if we're not keeping that wheel turning in that space, we don't know how to come down from there. And that's not a sustainable thing anyway. And people don't know how to bridge that gap from peace, from anxiety, if you will, and keeping that fear and that adrenaline going into what they really crave. Because law of attraction says that the only reason we want anything we want, like anything, a house, a partner, an animal, a solution, a new client, the only reason we want anything that we want in life is because we think we'll feel better when
Yeah.
we have it. So if we're trying to reach for feeling better, and in the process we feel this energy, and that's the only thing we become used to, we're almost desensitized for understanding what connection feels like.
I totally agree. And I would say that adrenaline, the addiction to adrenaline, is the basic addiction on the planet. And that adrenaline has a very short half-life. And mostly in relationship, people get that hit of adrenaline by blaming, criticizing, and being right. But you can also do that by speeding up and by escalating the whole sense of making other people wrong. And that what we see in our politics right now, that whole blame, criticism, other people are stupid, bad, and wrong, feeds adrenaline. But because adrenaline is not a renewable resource, it actually drains our ability to experience aliveness, and it completely cuts off any ability to connect. Because from adrenaline, you are actually in the part of your nervous system that is your reptilian brain. And so fear and adrenaline play off of each other. And then what people do to get that hit again of adrenaline, because they've become habituated, is they escalate the blame, escalate the criticism. If you think of movies over the last 20 years, particularly action movies, the kinds of things that are blowing up, we used to have, when I was young, if a car blew up in a movie, that was a huge deal. Whoa, that was like, just an amazing hit of adrenaline. Or somebody jumped out of the closet with a knife. That was an amazing hit of adrenaline. But now we have whole universes blowing up because everybody has gotten habituated and they don't get the adrenaline hit. The problem, though, is that people don't realize that the only thing that's really nourishing for people is actual connection. And if we're not able to be here, if we're in the fear trance, we cannot receive that connection. And so people are bypassing each other and, trying to get that sense of connection, but from fear you can't really experience it. And that's why I think that using fear melters and other ways of finding presence, like breathing and appreciating and moving in unusual ways and interrupting your habits, those are all ways that open up your grid, your receptivity to actually experiencing connection, which we know now is the antidote to addiction. It's not other substances, but when people are addicted, they're actually craving connection. And so I've found that on the other side of fear, the ability to give and receive attention, love, connection, is really what is going to heal us, both as individuals, but as a community, a global community.
This topic was of interest to me several weeks ago, and because I also, like you, see from a different point of view, I'm looking at things from a different lens of the degree of trust and the degree of fear and distrust in just
Yes.
life in general, and looking at addictions from that point of view, looking at isolation, looking at depression from that point of view, feeling disempowered, victim consciousness. So I'm also on that sort of leading edge of seeing all of that. But what we're experiencing during the recording of this actual interview is we're actually all experiencing this global fear trap. And I just want to, for those of you that are listening either currently or in the future, we are recording this during the situation with the coronavirus. And that will be the last time I say that word. And because to give it some power. But what it is doing, I believe, for a lot of us is really a couple of things. And I want to hear what you have to say about just this what is manifesting in terms of our enacting of this global fear. Like, we can actually see it now. I think prior to this conversation, it's an idea that someone may say, oh yeah, that's true, I can kind of see that. And now there isn't a single person on the planet who cannot identify and see this in action. So from your point of view, what are some of the things that in a situation like this, which hopefully doesn't happen for many, many years to come, but how can we identify some of the things that are holding us back, and how can we leverage? For me, it's all about contrast. So this is bringing up places where we don't trust, places where we feel insecure, things about ourselves that we can do something about and move forward. But what a lot of people are choosing to do is to continue to recycle and talk about and focus on and feel and reenact sort of the lack of having whatever it is we want. So from your point of view, how those two questions, the first question is, what are the things that we're doing that are hurting us, obviously? And then what are the things that we can take from the situation now more than ever into the future and do better with?
Well, I would say the most important thing for people is to find what I call essence pace, because we have been encouraged to go and do and accumulate and get, and then go get some more. We've been out ahead of ourselves for a very long time. And so what I invite people to do, and you can just try this on in your mind, or you can actually do it if you have the space to do it. When you're listening to this, I invite people to walk, and I invite them to first to accelerate until the people and the things around them look like objects, and then to decelerate until they feel like they're really getting so slow that they're feeling sludgy. And moving between those two poles of being very, very slow and very, very speeded up, there's a place, a range, or a particular pace where you are aware of you and you're aware of the space around you. So imagine yourself being on the sidewalks of New York, and you're moving along, and if you're moving really, really fast, other people are going to look like obstacles. And if you're moving really, really slow, other people are going to bump into you. But there's a pace at which you can move where you're going where you want to be going, and you're also aware of the flow around you. And that is, I think, one of the most important things that we can do, not only for ourselves, but to also support each other, is when people say slow down, just slow down, everybody. I don't think that's actually the solution, because you can slow down to the extent that you're not aware of you and you become a blob. But there is an essence pace of not only walking, but breathing, making decisions, that you're moving at a pace that fuels you, where you're getting the juice of enjoying moving and being alive, and you're also aware of others around you, which is really critical right now. We're with our giving other people space. I actually think that this crisis is such an invitation to include the rest of our bodies, because we become heads walking around looking at our devices. And the rest of our bodies, all of the 3,000 separate movements that our bodies can do and enjoy, have been reduced to two. Flexing and extending to click onto the iPhone and having our heads out of the vertical. So I think that moving in a pace that allows you to enjoy life is the most important gift that we can give to ourselves and to others. And the other is to utilize what I call fear melters, which are very simple moves that shift you from fear into here, where you can presence yourself and you can then invent new ways of connecting with others and new ways of collaborating.
So the fear melters are all movements? Because I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about the fear blockers first, and then I want to give people the fear melters.
Okay, well, the fear blockers. So let me just talk about the four fears. Fight looks like anger, but it's actually like if you imagine a boxer and a boxing stance, and you just jut your chin out, and you kind of go, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, you talking to me?" That looks like I'm putting on a show of strength, but it's actually the fight expression of fear, and it's rampant right now. So you see emails that say "fight back." Those are actually keeping the fear trance going, because when you're in fight, you're in fear. So that's one major fear blocker. Another one that's familiar to people is, in some ways, is flee. And that blocker is about actually not being here. So you can go up into your head and try to analyze. You can go forward into the future, like, well, what if I learn how to do this, but my partner doesn't learn how to do this? And you're actually not here. So the blocker of flee is, for most people, you can't, since we don't have tigers around in most places in the world now, but you might have someone with whom you're having a disagreement, but you have to work with them. So you're there, but you've actually fleed into an internal argument with them or making them wrong. So fleeing goes on really a lot. And freeze, the fear blocker of freeze, is, I think, originally designed so that we can be invisible. Our animal bodies, when we freeze, then the big bad predator can't get us. And that sense of freeze or of startle actually can block your breathing. It blocks your movement. It can be like a full-on startle, or it can just be a little, we hear a loud sound. That many people are frozen right now and not really able to act. So that particular version of fear is really, really rampant right now. But I think the one that is most rampant and most invisible to people is the fear blocker of faint. And faint, of all of the fear hierarchy, is the one that's closest to death. When animals know that they're going to die, their whole body goes into a faint. It begins to shut down and go passive and not feel. And as I look around in the world, I see a lot of people who are in faint. I was seeing an image on the internet the other day of a whole bunch of people coming back into the country, and all being crowded together, and all of them were just kind of standing there and moving along. There's no freaking out. I think people had really just gone into that passive faint. Their own energy is draining away. And so those 4 fear blockers that I think so many people are experiencing right now keep us from actually moving into any kind of solution. So if you suggest to somebody, there's nothing to be scared of, they don't realize you cannot talk anybody out of fear, yourself or anybody else.
Don't I know that? And aren't we experiencing that right now? So let's talk about what you can do, and for yourself or for someone else, because someone who's listening to this, my community, while they may be able to identify, fight, flee, freeze, and faint for themselves, ultimately they're solution seekers. Ultimately, they understand they're the creator of their own realities. Ultimately, they know there are tools out there to help them through this, which is why they're here. So
Yeah.
for those people the ones that are just reveling in their fear, the ones who want to defend their fear, the ones that want to stay victimized, the ones that are addicted to the adrenaline rush of the fear, we're not talking to those people right now, because there isn't anything you can do about them, because they're not
Right.
open to a solution. So for the ones that experience the fear, but yet can toggle between fear and hope and understand the consciousness and the decision making that's involved with what I focus on is what I create, what can we do to help pull us out of that fight, flee, freeze, or faint when we're not too stuck in it?
Well, even if you're stuck in it, what we know now from from science, thank goodness for science, is that you can change your physiological state, you can change your emotional state with 2 minutes of practicing fear melters. And I wanted to let your listeners know that we have a huge number of videos that very clearly show you how to do the fear melters, and give you examples of them, and you can do them along with. We have an animation. We have bunches of stuff on foundationforconsciousliving.org. And so to describe the fear melters, if you do 2 minutes of fear melters, it will change your state and bring you present and able to connect. And so when you're doing the fear melters, we actually have videos that are 2 minutes and 3 minutes, so that you can really learn, oh, that's 2 minutes, so that you're not just doing a couple of them and then saying, oh man, that didn't work. But what you're actually doing is you're turning the switch in your body, which then turns the switch in your brain. So your body brain, when you do these movements, it actually shifts your ability to presence yourself right now. So when you're in fight, you can do what we call oozing. So if you imagine yourself as seaweed in water that is just moving, when you're in fight, that whole whoa, where your muscles are all bulked up. When you're oozing, thinking of yourself as seaweed in water or hot fudge melting over ice cream, you cannot fight when you are oozing. And even if you don't know which of the fears you're in, it doesn't really matter. The fear melter for fleeing, when you're just not here, is what we call sumo. If you imagine yourself, you get your legs wide and you put your hands on your thighs and you just bend down and you shift from leg to leg, that sense of here I am. Here I am. You can also bounce into your heels, the whole sense of presencing yourself with sumo, that I'm here, right now. That's sumo. And in freeze, that's where you're most likely for people to say, oh, just relax, there's nothing to be scared of. And people kind of want to punch a person when they do that. But when you're in freeze, the fear melter is to begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Because even if you're completely frozen, you'll find if you just try it out, you can wiggle your fingers and your toes. And then you can begin to let that wiggling spread. And I like to let it spread enough until I can actually feel it, just like right now, I can feel the wiggling in my voice. That moves that frozenness, where, like, imagine water frozen in a pipe, it warms up the pipe so that the flow of aliveness and connection can happen again. And then for faint, the big global problem right now, I like to invite people to imagine that there's this big pool of love that you're standing in or sitting in, or it's just in a big pool around you, and you reach into that pool of love and you actually bring some love and bring that to your heart, bring that to your belly, bring that to your shoulders, let it flow over your head, let it wash over you. So the love scoops allow you to then reach out into the world and connect rather than feeling passively run over. So that's a brief description of the fear melters, and we've used them with thousands of people all over, and people find that they really work. They give you a portal to presence where you're going like, oh, here I am. I can now hear myself. I can listen to my own intuition. I've got my creativity online again. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get stuck again, but that I have a shift move that's very reliable that I can use anytime, because fear is going to come up again. It, particularly, we're living in a where so many aspects of life are completely unknown right now. So I'm so delighted that we have these fear melters now, because they will allow people to move through a doorway into an open space where new solutions can be developed.
I love that. And we will have a link in the show notes to at least the Fear Melter sampler that's on the Foundation for Conscious Living. And then, Katie, you can tell me if there's any other specific examples you want me to link people to. So make sure to check the show notes to get the link to the Fear Melters sampler that lives on foundationforconsciousliving.org. And I'm going to plan on doing this myself. And I think it's a great tool for people to, again, physiological change their state very quickly in a very short period of time. Let's talk about the whole concept, though, one more time, about the ending the global fear trap, because we have our in the moment tools for when we get in that. I am a big proponent on healing sort of those deepest core wounds, healing those belief systems that keep us repeating behaviors and patterns. So that way, less and less, we are reactive, we are triggered. What would be your idea of how we can really end the global fear trap, not just from a moment to moment basis, but just really down to the root cause of why we allow ourselves to get into, and I'm not saying things aren't warranted. When something is new and no one has been there before and they haven't experienced it before, then we go into that. Is this a situation that I'm going to live or die? It's a fight or flight. But there are situations that we do repeat over and over again, and we understand our response to that, and it does not help. It creates that fear momentum. How can we start to really shift that as a global society?
Yes, I really appreciate that summation, because everything you've been saying, the way that people have been operating, is as if they only were ahead, and they're trying to use just their thinking to solve these problems. When you use fear melters, it allows all of your brain to actually operate. So when you're thinking, when you're just thinking, you're using a part of your brain that's about the size of a quarter. When you're doing fear melters and other kinds of using your whole body intelligence, you also are activating all of the parts of your brain. So you're moving from reactivity to what we call restoring your resourcefulness. You actually get smarter. And we've really noticed that with people who've been using these, not just when they're in fear, but we really suggest that people use the fear melters, like 3 minutes of fear melters in the morning, to music that you really like just put on a song that you really like and play with fear melters, sets up a blueprint for the day where you're available. You're really present in the moment, noticing where the opportunities are, where the openings are, rather than so much where the problems are. The old saying, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you're open to both loving yourself, which we think, of course, is the deepest issue, is that people are afraid that they are unlovable. And when we open through fear melters, what I like to do is to use then fear melters plus some breathing, fear melters plus humming, which is very quick. When I move from my critical brain to my wonder brain. So if I do fear melters and then I go, I wonder how I could approach this differently, or I wonder how we could solve this together doing something else, then new solutions can come up very easily, and life then becomes a series of collaborations, wondering, getting curious, inventing, and then getting scared and doing fear melters and seeing more and more that life is with you and wanting to support you rather than life is against you and life is hard. It really changes not only your own personal point of view, but then you become contagious. You contage presence and you contage connection and creativity rather than fear and division.
Love it. And without knowing, without seeing yet the fear melters, but listening to your description, can we also move into, let's say, I do love the term fear melter because it's where we're going to go to be solution oriented to the present moment of what we're feeling and experiencing. And it makes sense. It feels right. It's in alignment with where we are. It's acknowledging where we are. Part of me wonders, can we just dance, or can we move into dance right after that?
Absolutely. In fact, that would be a wonderful thing to do. And what I suggest to people in dancing is just continuous. Whenever you find yourself doing something familiar, just change it up. Make a new choice so that you actually are inventing new moves. And then that lights up your brain, creates new neural connections, but it also helps you to open up and shift habitual patterns so that just while you're dancing, you're actually enlivening your whole nervous system.
Perfect. Perfectly said. Absolutely. What I love about learning about the brain and the neural pathways is really the same as what I've learned in physiology with musculature. When you want to strengthen muscles in a certain part of your body that you've done the same exercise over and over again, and you haven't done it necessarily consciously, we create new neural pathways by attaching the brain to visualize the process and by using conscious movement to actually stimulate more active fibers that are dormant because you haven't used them before. And it's sort of the same. Like, I got really excited when I made that connection. I thought, oh, the brain, it feels so daunting that I have to learn that. And then when I started to put it together, I'm like, wait, it's the same thing in the body. It's the same physiology in the body. So it makes complete sense that we're using the body to create more physiology in the brain, just like we create the brain to do more physiology in the body.
Yes, because it's been unbalanced for a very long time, that we think that the brain is the only thing that should be just telling the body what to do. But the body, your body wants to also support more aliveness and more intelligence. And we have brain cells in all of our body, and using them more lights everything up. My body is so happy when to be used and to be of service rather than just taking my body around, from place to place.
I always joke and tell people you have over 300 muscles and over 200 bones for a reason. We're built to move, not sit.
Exactly. And so that's and the thing for people to do is just start. Just do something and notice that you feel more alive, more capable, more that you belong here and that you can be a part of the solution.
Now, with that said, there's so much more work that you've done and tools that you have and resources. Let's talk about the best way for people to be in touch. How would you like them to proceed moving forward? They're going to get a link in the show notes. And if you're on the email list, you're going to get an email link as well for the Fear Melter Sampler, as well as a link to the Foundation for Conscious Living.org. But what else do you want them to take advantage of?
Well, I would love people to also know that we have a Facebook page for our Foundation for Conscious Living that has really daily hints, daily videos to support your aliveness and capability. And we also have our other website, Hendricks.com, what really is about how you can use all of these tools in relationship. And that is also where we have our seminars, our in-person seminars for consciousness enthusiasts who like to get together in person and invent new solutions for being more alive and being more connected to others. They can go there as well.
There will be a link for all of that in the show notes, so make sure to check out more info on your podcast, or make sure to check your email box because all the links will also be sent to you directly if you're on the list. Katie, this has been wonderful, and I look forward to interviewing you and Gay in person with Doug on your book, Conscious Loving, because I think that's a topic that we have to address very soon and that people are wanting to move to. It's definitely the temperature of the planet, even before this mess of things going on right now, is that people are wanting to move into more connection, more deep feeling, whole body, wholehearted ways to be with each other that's meaningful, and that we are actually present in our lives and we're not on the adrenaline wheel anymore, but we're actually getting the love that we want, which is what most people don't know how to do. And I think conscious loving is going to help us get there.
Oh, I agree. And we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the publication of Conscious Loving, and has been continuously in print since 1990. So we're very happy to continue sharing because we know everything in it really works.
I trust that it does. I look forward to the conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. All your wisdom and hope and mission to help end global fear trap. And I hope everyone shares the show with everybody else to consciously, again, connect those of us looking to be solution oriented, the ones who are aware that we want to be in our hearts, and then to be examples so that others can see how well our lives are going and want to do what we're doing. Thank you so much for being here, Katie.
Oh, thank you so much. A great pleasure.